Alright, so section 5.2, we're still solving systems by a different method, not elimination, it's tomorrow, substitution. So graphing isn't always like a great option. Honestly, there's three different ways to solve a system. Substitution is one, elimination is another one. We'll talk about that starting tomorrow, and then graphing. And I think graphing is by far the third option. Just because you never know what the answer is going to be. Is your graph going to have to be like super big? You don't know that going into the problem. So, all right, so substitution. We've got 3 steps we need to do. So we need to get x or y by itself in either equation. Doesn't matter which one, but either x equal or y equal in one of the equations. Alright, then we are going to substitute into the other equation and solve for x or solve for y. It depends on the problem. So at the end of step 2, you should have x equals 4, y equals 6, whatever. Okay, then the third step, we are going to substitute again. We're going to substitute our answer from step 2 into either equation. Okay, so let's see if I can fit one in here. So here's our 2 equations. So step 1, get x or y by itself in either equation. Well, some of them will be like this, where the y is already by itself. So I don't need to actually do that one. Okay, some you will, and we'll do one like that in a second. Okay, substitute into the other equation. So instead of y, substitute means replace of something with equal value. So sometimes when you go out to eat, you can say, can I have onion rings instead of french fries? And a lot of times they'll go, okay, and you just substitute one for the other. So what I'm going to substitute in this problem is, instead of writing a y, negative 2x minus 9 is the same thing as y, because y equals that. They're the same. So in the other equation, instead of writing y, I'm going to write negative 2x minus 9. Okay, so right here, I put that instead of the y. Okay, and then here comes the longest part of the problem. I got to solve for x, and this equation is pretty long now. So I'm going to distribute. Be careful with that 5 in the front. There's the negative sign has to come with it. So negative 5 times negative 2 is positive 10x. And negative 5 and negative 9 is positive 45. Okay, and then I need to combine these x's. 6x and 10x is 16x. Okay, then minus 45. When they're both negative, we just add. So we get negative 64. And then finally divide by 16, and x equals negative 4. Okay, so that second step is going to be the longest part of the problem. Okay, so once you get here, the rest of it shouldn't be too bad. So number 3, substitute your answer from step number 2 into either equation. I always go back to this first one. Okay, so just it looks, you know, here's your 2 equations to pick. Gosh, that first one looks a lot easier to do. You'll get the same answer in the end, but that one looks way easier. So negative 2, and then I plug in negative 4, and I get negative 2 times negative 4 is positive 8, and 8 minus 9 is negative 1. So remember, a system is the point where the 2 lines cross. The answer is not y equals negative 1 and x equals negative 4. The answer is a coordinate. You got to put your x and y part together and create a coordinate. If I were to graph those 2 lines, they would cross at negative 4 and negative 1. They would be a pain to graph, especially that second one. There'd be all kinds of fractions involved, and it'd be weird. So that's why a different method is good. Okay, so let's look at another. Important that you can list this off, the steps. Okay, get x or y by itself in either equation, substitute in the other equation and solve it, substitute or plug in your answer from step 2 into either equations. Okay, and maybe I should put a 4th step, write your answer as a coordinate. Alright, have a good rest of your day, guys. See you tomorrow. I think probably a little bit easier on this one. Okay, so the first step is to get x or y by itself. I want y equal or I want x equal. And it really doesn't matter which x or which y or which equation or any of that. But you do want to look at, and this one we have tons of options, but I would not choose the 3x because there's a number in front of it. Never the best choice. Always choose, oh, there's just a y with no number. There's another just a y with no number. There's a negative with the x, but there's no number. So that's another like key. But I typically like the positive ones. So either the positive y over here or the positive y like in either one. Okay. So I'll choose the first one, and I will add x over here. And I get y equals x plus 3. You could put 3 plus x. It'll still work. Okay? So step 1 is finished. I got y by itself. So step 2 is to substitute in the other equation. You can't go back to the same one or weird stuff will happen. You'll get like 0 equals 0. Got to take, instead of y, I'm going to put x plus 3 in the other equation. So instead of y, I'm going to put x plus 3. Okay, so here's my x plus 3, here's my x plus 3 instead of the y. Okay, and then I need to solve this. 3x plus x is 4x. Subtract 3. Divide by 4, and we get x equals negative 1. Okay, so that's step 2. Substitute and solve. Then step 3, plug in your answer, or substitute your answer. You can say plug in means the same thing, into either of the equations. So again, my choices are this one or this one. And I think the one that's y equal over here looks way easier. So instead of x, I put -1. -1 plus 3 is +2. Okay, that's step 3. But my answer, remember I have to combine, my answer is a point. Okay. Don't put y equals 2 and x equals -1. That's not the way we do it. You got to combine them for a coordinate. All right, so not a ton of problems, but the first 6 problems, pay attention to the directions. It says, tell which equation you would choose to solve for one of the variables, and explain. So I would solve the first equation for x because, and write whatever reason you had. I would solve the second equation for x because, or I would solve the first one for y. Okay? You're not solving the first 6. Then you'll have 8 of them that you are going to solve. Some of them are already y equal or x equal. Some of them you will need to get x or y by itself first. Remember to choose the one where x or y does not have a number in front of it. 1,000 times easier to do when it's like that. Okay? A lot of work to show on these. You can see, like, there's one screen and at least half of it's taken up with one problem. Okay? Substitution. So